This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Canna Health.
What if you had such a clear understanding of your own DNA and genetic makeup that you could make informed decisions about what type of cannabis products you should buy that best interact with your system? Well, now you can with EndoDNA. EndoDNA is a simple DNA test that maps your entire endocannabinoid system and then matches that summary with a specific cannabinoid ratio and terpene profile that's aligned with your unique genotype. Imagine being armed with personal information when visiting a dispensary. You'll have the power and capability to purchase products that best aligns to your genotype. Visit their website to purchase the EndoDNA collection kit and Endo Decoded report at endodna.com/products and use the promo code CONNECT15 for a 20% discount. Again, that's endodna.com/products and use the promo code CONNECT15 for a 20% discount. The future of cannabinoid therapeutics is here with EndoDNA. Hello, my fellow people of the plant. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast, your favorite podcast that includes industry-facing conversations with the industry's leading experts that aim to educate and inform the public regarding the plant's endless benefits. My guest today is Tomas Skrinskas. He's the founder and CEO at Ascension Sciences. Thomas, what's going on? Thanks for coming on the show today.
Pleasure to be here. This is a good chance for us to kind of get the word out on what we do, but no, excited for some conversation.
Absolutely. Yes, getting the word out as to what Ascension Sciences does. Y'all are based out of Canada, and it's also a great opportunity for myself and the audience to understand the landscape in Canada, right, when it comes to cannabis and hemp. So really excited to be talking with you about that.
Yeah, happy to delve into Canada and there's some interesting differences in how we deal with it, and obviously our research is what we want to plug a little bit, but I think you might be able to add something to our insights or our conversation for sure, because just your touch points, I need to do some BD as well.
Well, we'll sharpen each other up today then. That's perfect, man.
Yeah.
So before we get into those topics, let's first get a sense for your background, Thomas. So, at a high level, why don't you tell myself and the audience, what you were doing prior to cannabis and what brought you into the space?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about myself at length. I'm a biomedical engineer by training. Not anything in drug development or cannabinoids, as we see them as drugs at Ascension. But all that to say is, I've been in healthcare and the health industry and technologies in my early days. That all took me to a business degree. So trying to combine sort of the best of two worlds, technologies and trying to bring them to the people that need them most. That degree put me into a company called Precision Nanosystems, and I was the 10th employee there, so very much kind of in startup mode. And they're into nanoparticles. They have a mixing technology, and it was at that company where I saw the opportunity to combine what they were doing with cannabinoids. I think I mentioned it in my first little note there, that we just see them as insoluble drugs, and there's tons of insoluble drugs used in cancer and in all types of areas that require nanoparticles, and cannabinoids are just another type. And so that mashing up of technologies or industries created Ascension Sciences. We've been doing it for 2 and a bit years. It really kicked off probably more like 18 months ago, when we got our Health Canada license and what have you. But it was that I was being somewhat opportunistic, in seeing nanoparticles and cannabinoids, cannabis emerging, and I just kind of jumped on it.
Uh, So let's talk about that, like nanotechnology as a whole, as well as nano encapsulation, right? So,
Hmm.
from prior guests that I've had on and what we've learned, it's super difficult for these cannabinoids to be absorbed within the human body. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. The way I like to think about the nano is like you can tune what you want the cannabinoid to do. So I've used this analogy before, but the nanoparticle is the FedEx truck, and it's delivering the cannabinoid where it needs to go, when it needs to go there, and the way it needs to get there. So like to say that it makes it better, like it all just depends on what you want to do. Low dosages are important sometimes, or high dosages over a long period of time are applicable to pain or inflammation. So the nanoparticles, are that tool that can design the absorption the way you want, instead of it being a little bit up in the air, if you will.
That's a great analogy the way you put it. It's like a FedEx delivery
Mm.
truck and it just delivers those cannabinoids to whatever part of your body it needs to go, and the proper dosage, and probably, a certain type of absorption rate, or depending on where
Correct.
it's going. So
Yeah.
let's break that down in that analogy. So give us a few examples of these cannabinoids getting loaded up on this FedEx delivery truck and being sent to different areas.
Yeah. So the one we're working on right now, I alluded to it, is this prolonged release. So a lot of people are concentrating on, a gummy, or the rec market, where they need it to kick in 5 minutes, and they want it to go away in an hour. They're modeling it against a beer, or your wine experience, where we're looking at it for a prolonged release and higher dosages, again, for inflammation or pain, these chronic conditions that you don't want to be taking a pill every 2 hours, or it's annoying enough for a Tylenol every 4 hours, especially if you want to sleep better. You want it to last all night. So again, these particles can get through, the pHs in your stomach, so they survive through your stomach into your gut, and where they get absorbed, and then the particles actually get absorbed themselves into the bloodstream, and they're floating around, and they release the cannabinoids over time, uh, and in the bloodstream. And it's yeah, it's, I again say, where we're looking where other people aren't in that respect. We're not molecular biologists, or you know an API company, an active pharmaceutical ingredient company. Like, what I mean by that is, like, we don't really know what our cannabinoids do. Like, we look for the partners and our collaborators to bring their drug to us, and we make it better. It's a small distinction, but I can't say definitively that our particle will help cure cancer, or you can kind of use it for whatever you want. There's a
Right.
lot of research still to go, but yeah, a small distinction. But just to head off any any questions about, what is our particle, or what does the drug do, that's, yeah, it's a
Sure.
little bit of a different question.
Yeah, I mean, we got to be careful too. Of course, you hear even in the states, with false claims, and because the research up until now has been primarily anecdotal, right? It's been
Yeah.
testimonial stuff, and that's because, of course, the Schedule 1 listing, and so, of course, once that's lifted, and when we eventually go federally legal, that will change, and we'll be able to start really understanding what these cannabinoids do. So when you say, like what is the landscape like in Canada when it comes to, medical cannabis and its credibility or legitimacy, I guess, within the pharmaceutical space?
It's it, yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. Like, there's like the regulatory legitimacy, and then the research community legitimacy. Um, so let me, like, give you some examples. Um, so for anything you're selling on the market, even in a medical instance, you cannot make claims on it in Canada. Like you cannot say that it does something, but companies educate the clinicians. Like it's like that's the level of kind of marketing or education you can do, and it's
How receptive are the clinicians?
oh so this is where like the research, like the community or the anecdotal and real world evidence is extremely strong. So the clinicians are quite receptive, especially in instances where every other drug has failed. And here you come up with, a particular cultivar or just oil sublingual drops, and, it helps somebody sleep, or in the best cases, Dravet syndrome and these spasticities in children and stuff. I mean, yeah, it's cases where everything else has failed and this works. I mean, like that's you know that's crazy, or that's amazing outcomes. So clinicians super receptive. That you have to, like, the regulatory bodies. So what I've come to learn is they can only regulate compounds. So that's the problem with these botanical drugs or pharmaceuticals. It's the combinations of things. So the FDA finds it very, very difficult to regulate something that's like it's a combination of all these drugs. They're trying, and people parse it down to like just 2 or 3 cannabinoids in this particular ratio and all that, and it's starting to get approval, or the processing is working. But
So
there's other categories of products or health products like botanical drugs. They're creating these classes to help cannabis and other plants become useful therapies.
when you say that there's like all these different compounds within it, you're talking about like cannabis itself as and all of the major and minor cannabinoids and the secondary compounds like terpenes and flavonoids, right? Or are you talking about something else?
No, yeah, you hit it on the head. For when it's specific to the plant, that's what I'm talking about.
So you're saying when they're looking at the plant as a whole, full spectrum, all that, they're trying to implement more regulatory compliance around how it is consumed or how pharmaceuticals are made.
No, how it's approved for a particular condition,
I
because
see.
they need to attribute a particular outcome, like it helps pain, and it's this compound, only CBD, and only CBD at this dosage form helps. And the reason that's important is because the FDA also wants to know the side effects and the dosage ranges. And you can only, if you like, it's exponential. If you have 2 compounds attributing to the effect, then you have to change those 2 things and study all the maximums and minimums of dosages and their effect. You do 3, you do 4, it's this matrix of variables, and before
Well,
you know, you can't attribute one thing to a particular outcome.
right, and then to add to that matrix of variables, like isn't a person's specific genotype also a factor?
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's true of every drug. That's why you study the dosage ranges and age groups and other conditions like drug interactions. Like you're taking a chemotherapy drug and then you take CBD, what's going to happen now? Yeah, that exists for any drug. I don't think it's particularly overwhelmingly different for cannabis. Every drug has that effect.
Right, right, right. And it's just interesting. Well, what's encouraging first and foremost is that Canada's even talking about this, right? Because it's a sign that they recognize, that there are therapeutic benefits of the cannabinoids, and they're making an effort to figure that out, right?
Yeah, I like to give Canada a bit of credit. Like people grumble that the rollout is slow and license applications take forever, and but like we're doing it. Like that it's more than zero. It's possible, whereas it's just not possible anywhere else. So and it's year two, like it's year two of legalization. And let's cut each other a bit of slack here. Um, and yeah, so you're not wrong. Yeah, Canada is a good place to do research. But the US, so from like as a pure drug, you know, as a pharmaceutical, like just CBD that's synthesized and you know with companies like real pharma companies, it's not any different than a regular drug. It's it's more in that health and combinatorial, or if I just patent pending combinatorial, that's my word, in combination with other things or the whole plant. That's where you need kind of open up the regulations and work through it. But the long-winded way of getting to my point. So CBD in the U.S. is you know open for business on the federal level. In Canada, CBD is part of the cannabis plant as far as we define it. So you know it's CBD is less regulated in the US than it is in Canada, but CBD like piled in with THC and everything else, it's all on the same level. So it makes CBD harder, but it makes THC and other cannabinoids easier. It's a bit of a trade-off.
It's interesting because I sit back and I look at the landscape here in the U.S. and almost every single hemp operator that I talk to who's extracting for CBD or growing for CBD is that they're dying, they're begging for regulation, like they're
Mhm.
wanting it so bad because the market has become so saturated, you know. Um, and people don't really, like, the consumer doesn't really know what they're getting in the end product. Is it low quality? Is there any CBD in it? It's kind of opened this floodgate of like madness. Whereas it sounds like what you're saying, in Canada, they have regulations for CBD and THC and they treat them the same. They treat all the cannabinoids the same.
Correct.
See, that makes so much sense to me because my guess is once legalization happens, they're going to put some type of cap on THC, or they're going to put it in some type of special category because it has those psychoactive properties. But I don't know how that'll play out, but that would be my prediction. And that just seems like it would just complicate everything so much more, you know?
Yeah, you know, like I think that the Canadian approach, or like it's easier to be stringent at the beginning and open things up than the other way around, to have them open and then try to reel in you know CBD or the regulations around these things. And it's absolutely around the psychotropic effects. And you know I think there's still instances where a lot of CBD or CBD in combinations with things, you know, I don't know that I'd drive on it, you know, with my children in the car kind of thing. Like you you just have to be careful of, and that's the understanding, the research part that, you know, again, it's better to lump them all together at this point, and then and study it to make sure it's kind of getting out properly to the people that need it. You know, that's I'm on board with that with that
Yeah.
approach.
What's the scene like when it comes to Delta 8 in Canada? Are people consuming Delta 8? Is it being produced?
Yeah, I can't speak at length about that. I think that trend, or not like that difference, and it emerging as its own thing, is a little bit slower here. That's my short answer
That
to
makes
that.
sense because Delta 9 is legal. You know what I mean? It seems like it's just being adopted and it's emerging in hemp states, not, adult use states, just because of the fact that it, again, has those psychoactive properties that
Yeah.
Delta 9 would have. So that makes sense to me. So let me ask you this: what is the role of nanotechnology play in cannabis when it comes to like formulation of products? So we talked about encapsulation, right? That basically where you're putting it in pill form and it travels to like on that bus, that FedEx truck, like you said. But where else, what other products can we make, and how can we consume them with nanotechnology?
Yeah, good question. So, the nanoparticles can, adjust for different administration routes. So, like the way you're consuming it, and you can so sublingual or sprays in your up your nose. All these different tissues require a different nano approach to being absorbed efficiently and exactly the way you want it. Or eye drops, like you don't want to put straight up oil into your eyes at a particular ratio or a co-solvent. Like there's just less harsh ways to do that. Nano can help. Topicals and cosmetics is a huge area. So liposomes, is a buzzword in cosmetics. These lipid-based systems that help the actives get absorbed more efficiently, or you know have absorption for a topical indication, and even for getting it into the bloodstream through your skin. So nanoparticles can help do that. So it's quite, yeah, the oils work, for any given application, but to become more sophisticated, to differentiate, to get to dosages that are kind of clinically relevant. Nano is one of the big tools that enables that.
Mhm. And because Canada is in like the quote unquote, cannabis 2.0 era,
Mhm.
where from my understanding, it's really more consumable based products, whether it be, like edibles or like you said, topicals, sublinguals, things like that. Nanotechnology, and I would imagine Ascension Sciences is playing a big role in that era right now of cannabis 2.0.
Mhm. Yeah, especially when people are trying to differentiate. So you see a lot of like this gummy has nano in it, and it'll get absorbed, or it'll hit you faster, or bioavailability is higher. Where we're trying to validate a lot of that, or you just have to be careful. Like the early nano, I think it all works, but it's based much on like the food and beverage industry, where emulsification has been used for a long time, and so it works. But we're in the space of making those better, and playing a little bit more in the health to pharma space. So again, we have conversations with beverage companies, but we like to deal more in health and pharma, where formulation is, I don't know, as we see it, a little bit more sophisticated. Um, the other places, like different packaging and different shelf life, and all that can be certainly helped by our encapsulation approaches, so that people save money, or they don't have to get rid of inventory. Either the business case is pretty strong there as well.
Hmm. That makes sense. So let's talk about Canada like as a whole. So I'm interested. I've had guests on from Canada that talked specifically again about their adult use market, which of course, because Canada was the first G7 nation to go fully adult use. But I haven't really talked much about the hemp market within Canada. So tell me a little bit about what's happening within the hemp marketing in Canada, and what Ascension Sciences is doing in that particular space.
Well, like this is where it's like a pretty short topic. It's like it's lumped in, kind of that CBD THC lumping things in. We don't have any over the counter CBD uh, pills, like at the pharmacy, or anything like that, or like pure CBD water at the convenience store. So because it's all kind of under that one regulatory umbrella, um, you know, the rollout for those products is much slower. And especially if you want to make claims on anything, um, that that component, I think we need to give it still another year or so for Health Canada to figure out how they want people to like label claims for a product or validate claims. That'll be a different stringency level than just your gummy, but not quite as high as a pharmaceutical product. But again, if this is all CBD specific, it's it's literally just being worked out. Like they're taking guidance calls for all of that, and I think they're doing a reasonable job of it. It all takes time.
Right, and you're speaking from the perspective of Ascension Sciences on the pharmaceutical side of CBD products, right? Like when
But
you
but even on the rec side, like you still, yeah, you have to go to the dispensary for your CBD water or whatever the case is, and pharmacies are like it's behind the counter. Yeah, you can't just buy it next to your melatonin on the shelf, or fish oil or anything like that. Yeah, it's
and that
that's just how they.
and that's because again like you said, they lump the cannabinoids into one kind of category, and they're still doing the R&D and trying to learn about it before they can have the products available for people to consume them for those specific ailments that they learned, right?
Correct. Yeah, yeah. No, that's a pretty good summary.
And it sounds like there is no to deadline, right? I mean, this is just ongoing research, right? So when do you guys
Yeah.
find out? Like, when are we ready? Is that one thing that you're kind of chomping at the bit for?
Um, so I mean, our business is like an early development. Um, like we do the formulation, like preclinical work. So, we're B2Bs. I guess we want the companies we work with to be making money based on our formulations, but yeah, it's still our business model is kind of that earlier stage and helping people do those early studies. But again, if they're taking guidance now, I expect health products as a category to be out in 12 months or so, and that's faster. People won't even be ready for that as far as companies go. Like they're still catching up on getting their gummies figured out. Like as soon as it's not like when the category opens, everything will be on the shelves. Like there's people they would have had to do their product development, you know, 8 months ago. The truth is they're just figuring out pre-rolls, or let alone like a fancy CBD pill at this stage.
Mm-hmm. That's surprising to me because I feel like if they flip the switch in the US, operators would be like, boom, like they'd be on it, you know?
It's because like we have a lot of growing capacity, and that started and then now there's a processing bottleneck. So processors are slammed, and so just the value chain, or like the product you know development chain is okay. Now you need to put it into a tablet and the next thing. And so the the other twist to it is you cannot import into Canada for sale. So even if your operators in the US had all this stuff established and wanted partnerships in Canada, like we couldn't get things across the border for sale. We could do it for research, which is what we do all the time, but so it has to be domestic capacity, and it those bottling and tableting and whatever other product formats, we have to build those
Mm-hmm.
from scratch.
Yeah.
And
The bottlenecks make sense. And like, so is that being addressed in Canada? Like, is there more capital and more investments in the processing extraction labs? Like, and I know that those labs take time to build out, right?
mhm.
But like, is that one thing that you're seeing is being addressed or not so much so?
Yeah, it is being addressed because the licenses are being approved, and you know I think it's yeah the short answer is yes. And I think we have to set our expectations properly too. Like it's only year two, And I think we just have to give it time. I can still get whatever product I need at a particular moment. Like I can still walk down to the dispensary and it's no big deal. People, I don't know, it's I don't want to, it's not a societal thing, I don't like that word, but like what is it that you want? Like you just wanted to drop out of the sky? Like let's just like
It
let's
takes
go.
time, right?
Yeah, it takes time.
When you say 2 years, I mean that kind of, yeah, you're right, because we've talked about Canada being online for so long. It seems like, and every day it's like you're looking at the news. When is the U.S. going to
Yeah,
reform or pass legalization? So it seems like a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, it's been 2 years. you know,
yeah,
so
exactly. And I think I think the bottleneck, there's that processing thing, but the point I'm making is these labs processes need to be built from scratch. Like there are not many people that are repurposing their existing lines or production lines to cannabis. Um, they have to be built kind of from the ground up. And yeah, I mean, how long does it take to put up a 5,000, 10,000 square foot manufacturing facility? You have to build it in 6 months, then you have to get it licensed, and so you'll be ready when, if you're smart, you'll be ready when the regulations change. But yeah,
right.
you can't build it any faster than that.
How much? So when you say that, within Canada's regulations for adult use, they do not allow import sale, like you mentioned. So no product from the U.S. to resale, right?
Correct.
Um, so will there be any impact at all if the U.S. goes fully legal at some point?
I believe so. I think that's kind of the linchpin on that. And you know believing that the quality and safety of the products is up to the proper standards. Like I think I don't think it'll happen overnight, but no, that will certainly help. Like the way people are mitigating it is they're kind of doing it. There's lots of licensing agreements and tech transfer agreements, or a U.S. company will give a Canadian company some cash to build a facility and bring in the product category. You can ship in raw materials, ship in all the raw materials except the cannabis or processed inputs from the plant, and create it in Canada. All that type of thing exists.
Oh, okay. So I thought you meant like even raw material like flour. So you can.
So I mean, you cannot ship in cannabis flower. Like you can, I mean, like if it's a drink, you can ship in the, the mix of
I
sugars
see.
and whatever.
I see.
Yeah, that's what I mean by raw. Like all the cannabis active stuff
Got
needs to
you.
be from Canada.
Got you. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. I was like, wait, what? Wait, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah,
So I have another question, and you may not have insight into this, but it's out of curiosity because I know that this is going to be a pain point within the cannabis and hemp industries in the US as more states go online for adult use. So it's zoning laws when it comes to hemp cultivation and cannabis, or more specifically, THC cultivation. So we know that there's this problem of cross pollination, right, and ruining your feminized crops on the THC side. And I know that Canada's primarily indoor, of course, and greenhouses probably because of the climate. But even with that indoor and greenhouse, there is some concern and risk of cross pollination. So has Canada done anything to address that particular issue? Because I know, again, when you talk about there's no regulation, they all kind of see the cannabinoids the same on the pharmaceutical side, but for growing, it's impossible to do that because one crop could ruin the other.
Mhm. Yeah. I can't speak too intelligently on the growing aspects of things. Um, yeah, I guess I'm postulating a bit, but everything, it needs to be purpose built and driven. Like you can't grow, just for CBD and then for THC, like on the same in the same building, in different at different times. Like it has to be for that particular purpose. But yeah, I have to plead that I'm not super duper on the farmer side. I can put you in touch with people that would definitely talk your ear off on that point, though.
No, I would appreciate that. Like I said, it was just out of curiosity, and it's something that I know is just going to be an issue here in the U.S. So, but yeah, I'd love to talk to whoever you know who knows more about that. But I mentioned earlier that Canada is in 2.0. So whereabouts are they in the 2.0 era, and what is next for Canada? In 2021 and even beyond.
Yeah. So starting with your last question first, like the next one is the health products. So so you can be able to make a claim on a CBD tablet. It's supported with X level of study, and again, that's what Canada is putting in place. Like what level of scrutiny and research do you need to put a claim on a bottle? So that's those health products, I believe, are next. And the stage that we're at, I mean, topicals like sachets and tea and gummies and chocolates, and the edible side of things is all above board at this stage. Um, it's quite new categories are are able to be submitted, and product formats can be approved like in 2 months or a little bit more. You just supply them your ingredient list and make sure it's safe and it's on their list type of thing. But it's pretty open. I don't know how many 2.0, 3.4. I think by the time we get to 3.0, I think everything will be available. That's
Right.
my belief. Yeah.
No, let's hope that happens. And what is in store for Ascension Sciences?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we're in still a little bit in our startup mode, where we're 4 people and we have our Health Canada license for nanoparticle research, and that's sort of our service. If you need something vetted or analyzed or adjusted as a nanoparticle, we can do that. Where like the research service business model can only take us so far. So we were really looking for those collaborators or partners that want to take us on long term, kind of as a research arm of their company. And anything we have in house, we're open to licensing or adjusting our platform for an end product. So all that, any startup 101 is focus. And I wouldn't say we're at that. We're still a little bit figuring out our identity, but every day, I'm just, my resolve is strengthened because people are really understanding a bit more the value that we can bring. And I think this year, every year is like a leap for us. That's the fun part about it, and I just love to see where we're going to be in 12 months. I think it's really go time for us.
That's exciting to hear, man. We'll
Yeah,
really look forward to following y'all's progress as Canada's market continues to grow, and expand into the pharmaceutical side of things,
yeah,
which is really exciting. So, where can people find y'all's website and social media if they want to learn more?
yeah. No, we're really active on LinkedIn. Just Ascension Sciences and at Ascension Sci. Is that right, Melody? Perfect. And super active on LinkedIn. Our website, ascensionsciences.com. And we publish little research articles like, the effect of storage conditions, or particle size has an effect on X or Y. And so certainly reach us through any of those channels. Always happy to chat. It's it's an easy sell to have a conversation and reach some new ears. So really appreciate the time you've given us.
Absolutely, man. Well, I've really enjoyed it as well, and I know that the audience did as well, because it's always interesting to hear what's happening in different countries, especially a country like Canada, who was the first major country to go online. So keep doing great work, and we look forward to
Mhm.
following y'all's progress, man.
Yeah, keep in touch, and yeah, let us know what else we can do for you. I mean, you directly, Kevin, and anybody else in radio land.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Thomas, and thank you all for listening. Bye.